Officials tonight, Bert Smith, Ramey Steins, and Tony Henderson, and Georgia Tech controls the opening tip. This is a Yellow Jackets team. While they're 3-8 in the ACC, the 3 wins have come against UNC, Duke, and Clemson. Those are 3 teams in Joe Lunardi's projected field. They're 3 of the 4 top teams in terms of the net ranking in the ACC. Starting lineup for Wake Forest. Hunter Salas is the ACC's 3rd leading scorer. He went for 24 last time out. Cam Hildreth had 19 against Georgia Tech last year. And Efton Reed, the big man in the middle, the transfer from Gonzaga. Miller is lightning quick, gets a step, and cannot finish.
Wake had really good ball movement that time, and that's what they want. They want to move the ball and move the players against this Georgia Tech man-to-man.
Starting 5 for Georgia Tech. Miles Kelly, Tech's leading scorer, went for 20 and 10 Saturday against NC State. Baye Ndongo has not been a factor the last 2 games. Got hurt early against North Carolina last week, and then on Saturday was in foul trouble before fouling out against NC State. Kawasi Reeves, who hit 4 threes Saturday, opens the scoring tonight.
And Georgia Tech can be a dangerous 3-point shooting team. In ACC play, they're making more than 9 a game.
Wake has had its struggles on the road. Hildreth, poor shot. Reed gets it back, big to big. Carr banging down low. Wake is on the board. This is a Wake team. You watch them at the Joel. It's one type of team. They're 12-0 at home. On the road, they've lost 4 straight, only 1 true road win this season. When we talked to Steve Forbes about it, he said he's not making a big deal about it with his team, but he's felt some second half lapses with turnovers, sloppiness, and on the boards has led to some of those road losses.
Well, they had a chance against Florida State. They had a chance against North Carolina State. They had a chance against Pitt. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think they got out-toughed at the end of all those games. And so Steve Forbes, yes, he'd like him not to be sloppy, but he'd also like him to be a little bit tougher.
George, no good. The rebound to Hildreth. Yellow Jackets back on defense, and a foul. They're going to get Dewana.
There's no problem with toughness on that guy's part, Hildreth.
Well, you mentioned toughness. When we spoke to Damon Stoudemire at shoot-around, he said, we want to make this a physical game. We know Wake is good. We know they're a finesse team. We know they can score. They want to challenge Wake physically.
And I think that's a pretty good strategy, but you got to worry about foul trouble. One of the interesting things I've seen here in the man-to-man defense that Wake Forest is playing, it's Andrew Carr who's matched up against Ndongo. So they don't, Steve Forbes has decided at least to start, he's not having Reed go against Ndongo, trying to keep Reed out of foul trouble.
And Ndongo actually picked up that foul. With the both big men, Ndongo and Reed, foul trouble is a concern.
Well, it is, and Reed sometimes picks up some silly fouls. I think that if he would avoid those silly fouls, he wouldn't have the foul problem, so we'll have to see.
Kelly coming off that 2010 game, no good, rebounded by Wake. Demon Deacons, the best defensive rebounding team in the ACC. Also the best 3-point shooting team in the conference. Salas, the Gonzaga transfer, coming off a 24-point game. He's got 2.
And Salas is very good at getting into the lane for that mid-range jumper. And what a job by Hildreth to just push the ball up the court.
Reeves using the shot fake, driving on Carr, stood up, battle for the board, and it's ripped away by Andrew Carr, the senior from West Chester, Pennsylvania.
That was great defense by Carr, going straight up.
Carr backing down Ndongo. They go right back to him. Dongo's already got that 1 foul. Carr drops it off to Reed. He waited for that big double.
Well, what Carr had to wait for was Reed to stop standing there and cut to the basket. And when Reed finally did, Carr gave him the ball.
Both bigs for Wake Forest pass the ball extremely well. Here's the lob for Ndongo. It's broken up. Miller the other way.
Look at him go.
Acceleration, turbo, and the basket. And an early timeout by Damon Stoudemire.
Well, Wake has been able to get out and go. They're on a 10-0 run. And Kevin Miller, he can really get down the court. This is transition basketball. Wake Forest, if they can play this way, it's going to be a long night for the Yellow Jackets.
When you're great, your game does the talking. In the ACC, ours speaks volumes. 3 of the last 8 NCAA championships. 99 NCAA tournament wins since 2015. 8 NCAA titles in the last 22 years. 6 of the top 30 winningest programs in Division I, most of any conference. It's not bragging if it's true. Greatness is what we do. The ACC,
Wake Forest off and running a 10-0 run here in the opening minutes against Georgia Tech, a team that averages 80-plus points per game in conference.
Well, running, literally, not just a good start, but they have been able to get out in transition. Georgia Tech cannot set its defense, and when you let Miller go like that, you've got a problem.
Miller all over George.
And Miller's trying to be very aggressive, and that's what he needs to be, but he's got to watch the fouls as well.
Air ball from Reeves. Claude and Carr tied up. It comes to Efton Reed. And now Wake again looking to push. Carr, catch, release, splash. We saw this team Saturday against Syracuse shoot the living daylights. 66% from the field, one of the best shooting performances in school history.
Well, they made 12 of 19 from beyond the arc, and when you get shots like that, it's understandable you're going to shoot a high percentage.
Ndongo from the corner, they'll give him that. Carr another rebound, and Wake wants to run.
Miller thought about that, didn't he? But again, that time Georgia Tech got back on defense, but Hildreth is just pushing the ball at him.
Knocked away by Ndongo. It comes to George.
That's good defense, but that was a bad pass.
Reeves, the up and under, can't finish. Out of bounds, last touch, they say, on Tyjon Claude. ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball. Version 1.0 that started 4-3. They were missing 2 big pieces who have returned through the course of the season. When Efton Reed was declared eligible in early December, it was a game changer. And then, just last month, they get one of the best 3-point shooters in the ACC back, Damari Monsanto.
And that's one of the reasons, Anish, that an example like that is why I think the metrics that we use in all this bubble nonsense and everything are flawed, because you don't give a coach a chance to build his team and to put things together. Basically, by the time conference play starts, your net is already put in place, even though the team is different. And now Wake Forest, they've done a pretty good job building their net up to 42. But this is a very different team than the one that started the season.
And a much better one.
And a much better one, yes.
Hildreth off the feed from Carr. Count it. Wake is rolling 15 unanswered.
Now Hildreth, I mean, he moves so well without the basketball, and this is just a tremendous move. The fake gets Claude in the air, and then somehow he's able to worm his way past him and shoot it from underneath the basket. But a great cut and a great pass by Carr.
Hildreth, an 80% free throw shooter, missed.
There's a lane violation.
That's not what you want to do if you're Georgia Tech, give an 80% free throw shooter another shot.
And Wake Forest in conference play leads the ACC in free throw shooting.
Efton Reed is down.
Well, I didn't see what happened. He's going for that rebound, and Ndongo just comes down. I think
he step on his foot.
No,
he got him in his eye.
That arm coming down. Yeah, I mean, it's totally by accident. There's nothing there. But that does not feel very good. It's, you know, Reed is saying, no, he's fine. But that does that feels very unpleasant.
16-0 run for Wake. Georgia Tech had that early three from Kwesi Reeves, nothing since. Kyle Sturdivant in the game at point guard. Ndongo setting the high screen.
Wake is really trying to attack the ball in their man-to-man defense.
Kelly driving, Carr the rebound. Georgia Tech now 1 for 10.
They're taking tough shots.
Salas knocked out of bounds. They'll stay here.
Yeah, and Anish, when I say Georgia Tech is taking tough shots, when you take tough shots, that is almost like a turnover. It allows the defense to get the rebound and push quickly down the court.
A breather for Reed. Matthew Marsh comes into the game. Carr's three offline.
Now, if you're Georgia Tech, you need to settle into something here. Move the basketball.
Here's Claude, back out, Sturdivant open, it rims out.
Conference play, Sturdivant shoots 39%. That's a good look. Georgia Tech just missed that one.
He's been a valuable piece off the bench this year. Hildreth in traffic, 18 unanswered for Wake.
Hildreth he's one of the most aggressive players in this conference.
He's got 7 so far, not close. That was Tafara Gapari, the UMass transfer, and Georgia Tech has missed 11 of its first 12.
Well, they're not taking good shots, and when you're struggling to score, you don't want to take that kind of a shot that Gapari just took so early in the shot clock.
Carr working on Gapari, gets over Gapari, 20 in a row for Wake.
Wow. And Carr is showing you some versatility. He scored from outside, he scored from inside, making some nice passes. He's played very well on the defensive end.
Tech has not scored in its last 11 trips down court. Claude's pass picked off by the freshman Fredrickson, and they'll get Gapari with a reach-in.
Well, Fredrickson picked it off, but this guy here, Andrew Carr, is the guy who made the play defensively. And this is just a really tough, strong move on the offensive end.
Into the game for Wake Forest, it's the sharpshooter Damari Monsanto. Last February against NC State, he tore his left patella tendon. Came back last month. In his first game against Louisville, all he does is make his first 4 3-point shots.
Well, Wake is going to keep that ball. And Matthew Marsh is a guy, he can be very effective around the basket, but you have to throw him lobs. You can't be throwing him bounce passes. It's just too far down for the big guy to go.
Marsh last year shot 88% from the floor.
Well, shot selection was the big part of that.
Ready-made.
You got to throw it up to him, not down.
It's like me, when you don't have to tie the tie, you just clip it on. Salas, rebound George.
That's really good defense. A little bit of a force by Salas. Wake Forest, they've been very good at moving the ball. They got to continue to do that. You don't want to be playing one-on-one basketball.
Almost a 7-minute scoring drought here for Georgia Tech. This will stay with the Rambling Wreck.
Wake Forest has been very active defensively. They've had their hands in the passing lanes.
We know how gifted this Wake Forest offense is. If they get that defensive component, look out ACC. Offensively, it's one of the best teams in the country.
They can put points on the board.
Shot clock at 1. Sturdivant to Claude. And that is a shot clock violation. And Wake Forest in transition and on the defensive end making an early statement.
They really are. And Marsh that time, you know, it's good to have a 7-foot guy back there. And Marsh moves very effectively, catching up with Claude. I don't think Claude even knew he was there.
4 turnovers, 1 field goal for Georgia Tech through the first 8 minutes. Front rim for Salas.
Now you don't, if you're Wake Forest, you've done a nice job moving the ball, getting good shots. You don't want to start to shoot the ball quickly against the set defense.
George spinning, throws it up toward the rim, and again, Georgia Tech has not scored. Uh-oh. Monsanto almost got the three. Looked good coming out of his hand. Georgia Tech's last basket at 19:01 of this opening half. Last touch on Frederickson. Will step aside. Tech has missed 13 of 14 from the field. Wake has scored 20 unanswered. ESPN with Dan Bonner and Ish Schroff. This Wake Forest team 12-0 at home this season. They've won 43 of their last 48 games at the Joel. It's been on the road where their struggles have manifested this year. 1-4 in ACC road games, 1-5 overall in true road games.
Well, it's always easier to play at home than it is on the road, but what you have to do is get good shots, and they really have gotten good shots, particularly early in the game. Now, they've only made 3 of their last 8, which isn't a disaster, but I mean, Monsanto coming in the game when he shoots the 3 from the S in Cremens, that's not exactly the shot early in the clock that Steve Forbes is looking for.
Georgia Tech with 1 field goal in its 16 possessions so far.
Well, we played 8.5 minutes, and they've only scored 1 basket.
George driving around Reed, and nothing going in for the Yellow Jackets. Now 1 for 15 from the field. Miller again hits the turbo button, looking for help. Frederickson. Reed bats it back to Boopie Miller. Monsanto catch and shoot, true.
He passed up the first one. There's no way he was passing up the second one. Nice job by Reed to get the ball right back to him. I mean, Reed's thinking, what are you throwing me the ball in the corner for?
George. Battle for the rebound.
I think they got Coleman.
We get a foul on Coleman.
Wake wanted to move the ball, and there the ball moves to Reed. And Reed, the expression on his face, what are you giving it to me for? Now Monsanto, he hadn't played very many games, but he has not attempted a 2-point shot yet, and this is his 5th game back. He hasn't attempted a 2.
20 shots, all 3s, and he's made 10 of them.
There you go. Why would you do anything else?
This after not playing for 11 months. 23 unanswered for Wake Forest. Lob inside for Reed, goes awry.
And Wake Forest defense has been a key here, I think, because they've really forced Georgia Tech into some tough shots.
Almost 9 minutes since Georgia Tech scored, and they'll have a chance to end the spell at the free throw line. That's the freshman Ibrahima Sacco to shoot 2.
And he got the foul on Reed, and Reed went in there. He was in good position, and he just went for the fake. I mean, Sacco is quite a bit smaller than Reed, and he's underneath the basket. Reed's just got to stand there.
Now, these aren't gimmies for Georgia Tech. Sacco 1 for 7 at the line this season.
And he's 6 inches smaller than Reed, and that's when Reed just has to stay down. He doesn't even have to jump to block that shot.
That ends a 23-0 Wake Forest run, and a bit of a sarcastic applause from this McCamish Pavilion crowd. Gets them both. The scoring drought in all 8 minutes and 45 seconds of game time.
That's a long time to go, whether at home or not. Now you got to tighten it up on the defensive end. That's the way you're going to come back in the game. You've got to use your defense to create some easy shots on offense.
Miller to the basket, blocked. And let's see who this is on. If it's on Ndongo, it's his second. It's Sturdivant, his first.
Well, Sturdivant is all over him from the time he starts driving, but Miller He's a little guy, but he is a strong guy. Those two were bouncing off one another all the way down the lane.
Why has Steve Forbes been so successful in the transfer portal?
Well, I think that he has, obviously it's tough. It takes a talent to find guys, and you look at, Salas is basically a high major transfer, even though from the West Coast Conference, but it's Gonzaga, for heaven's sakes. And Reed, he played at LSU and then at Gonzaga, so he's a high major transfer. And so if you look at his history, Alondas Williams was a high major transfer. He doesn't, Boopie Miller is a little bit different because he's from Central Michigan, but he gets the right guys and he's able to blend them in, but he doesn't have a lot of guys who are stepping up from a lower level, and I think that's a factor.
Miller coming off a 21-point game on Saturday, was 10 for 14 from the field. Sacco to the rim, blocked by Carr. Salas pushing, nearly poked away by Ndongo.
That's a nice job by Georgia Tech to get back, but now the floor is so spread, and it's Carr again making a great pass.
Largest lead of the game for Wake. Yellow Jackets still only have one field goal. George with 10 to shoot. Rebound, Carr.
See, there's 10 to shoot, but that's 10 seconds. He didn't have to drive it into that crowd and take a tough shot.
Hildreth is fouled before the shot.
And this is just a situation where Kelly loses Salas, but he loses him because the floor is completely spread, and Carr once again finds the cutter. Georgia Tech just can't get anything going on either end, and Wake Forest they're really going well.
How much of it is Wake's defense? How much of it is Georgia Tech with maybe some poor shot selection as Hildreth gets an easy one down low?
Your offense has to help your defense, and poor shot selection puts a lot of pressure on your defense. And I think that Wake Forest defense has been very good, but Georgia Tech has been a little bit impatient.
Kelly tried to thread the needle, and Damon Stoudemire putting Sacco in, putting Amari Abram, number 24, who's checked in, the Ole Miss transfer. He's looking for a spark. He told us at shoot-around, hey, we might have to make some tough decisions here down the stretch and figure out the guys that can help us.
Well, Abram is a guy who started the season for Georgia Tech at point guard, and his playing time has greatly diminished, so a big opportunity here for him.
He was hurt. He's only played in 9 games. Here comes Miller. Abram tried to poke it away. Miller throws it up to the rim. And the rebound by Reeves.
He just got off balance that time. It was too fast for himself.
Reeves, the 3. That doesn't go. Again, Georgia Tech, only one field goal. We've played almost 12 minutes in this opening half.
And they're only getting one shot each time. Wake Forest doing a great job on the defensive boards.
They are the best defensive rebounding team in the conference. Salas leans in. Marsh bats it away. We get a whistle against Wake. The Demon Deacons have come out like a bear who missed breakfast, 29-5. 7:56 to go opening half.
They have made one field goal in 19 attempts. That is 5.3%, and Wake Forest has been able to get out and go. Yeah, and you can see why they're misfiring. There's tough shots. Now this is a wide open, uncontested one, but Georgia Tech simply hasn't gotten very many of those.
It's been the nightmare of real things for Damon Stoudemire's team. You think of some of the low-scoring first halves we've seen in the ACC this year. They've all come against Virginia. Right, Miami last night scored 17. Louisville had 13. NC State couldn't do anything. Wake, as great as they are offensively, no one's mistaking their defense for Charlottesville.
Well, there's no question about that, but they have done an excellent job. They have been extremely aggressive. We talked about toughness. Well, they've been pretty tough so far today. They're doing a great job pressuring the ball. They're double teaming screens. They're doing a great job helping out on the inside when they double team off a screen and then getting back. I mean, Andrew Carr has a steal and 2 blocked shots that will go along with 5 rebounds and 7 points. He's been in the center of the whole thing.
Abram grazed the front rim. Georgia Tech now 1 for 20 shooting.
I don't know that I've ever seen anybody be 1 for 20. I've seen being 1 for 20 from 3, but not 1 for 20 overall.
At some point, you would think the law of averages will step in. Hildreth from the corner. Rebound to Reeves.
And the other thing Wake Forest is doing, they're getting back on defense. There hadn't been any transition opportunity at all for Georgia Tech.
Reeves, the shot fake against the trees. Shot altered.
Now,
that's Marsh.
Now Reeves had an open 3, and I know they haven't hit from 3 very well, and so he was afraid, but he passed up an open shot to take it into the middle of the lane where there was a lot of defenders. You just have to shoot that 3 with confidence, particularly if you're Reeves, who's an outstanding 3-point shooter.
He's got their only field goal of 3. That came a minute into the game. That's amazing. Georgia Tech has missed, what, 19 straight shots?
Steve Forbes wants to know what everybody's waiting for.
Andrew Carr against Kapari. Turns and hits. 9 for Carr. This was a Georgia Tech team just a week ago. Knocked off North Carolina on this floor. Almost a turnover.
Again, the pressure on the ball has been outstanding.
Reeves from the outside. That doesn't go. Monsanto the board.
You just can't dribble it around, make one pass, and shoot a 3. That's not the formula for success.
Carr with great position, follows his miss, and draws the foul. 17th foul on Georgia Tech, and that puts Wake in the bonus.
Carr catches the ball, and he's sort of a little bit off balance. He gets fouled the second time around. Gets fouled on the rebound. But Carr, as I said, Carr has been in the middle of everything.
Dan, can you remember a shooting start this cold?
No, I really can't. And I'm sure it's happened before. I've done this for a long time, but these are the kind of things that you like to forget.
The only game that comes to mind in recent memory, it was Pitt, I believe, against Virginia, where in the first half, I'm not sure they cracked 10 points.
Well,
right now,
the problem is they've dug themselves a hole to have Georgia Tech, and one of the things when you dig yourself a hole, the first thing you have to do is stop digging. And they're taking tough shots, and they're not helping themselves.
Now, right now, they're halfway to Beijing.
It has just been a rough night. And, it'd be interesting to see what happens if they can get the ball to go in the basket a couple times and sort of get their legs underneath them.
Now, Wake's defense has not given Georgia Tech anything easy. That's an open look for Kapari, and he can't get the bounce. The rolls, even at home, not going the way of the Yellow Jackets.
Well, that's true, but Kapari in ACC play is a 4 for 20 3-point shooter, so the guys who are open for shots, sometimes there's a reason why they're open.
Scouting report doesn't lie. Wake Forest has had a 20-0 run in this half. They're in the midst of a 10-0 run. It was 3-0 Georgia Tech at one point. 33-2 Wake since then. Carr turns, fades.
Now again, the ball stays in one spot. Everybody's standing around. And even though they're way ahead, Steve Forbes is upset about that particular play.
Ndongo is fouled by Monsanto.
This is a situation where Georgia Tech finally gets something going on the screen and roll situation, and Monsanto coming in with the body. But that's really the first time that Georgia Tech has made Wake Forest pay for that heavy pressure on the screen and roll situation.
Been that kind of half.
Wow.
As a coach, watching this, what's going through your mind?
Going through your mind is, I hope we get to halftime really fast. Ndongo only a 55% free throw shooter in conference play.
A crowd trying to hang on to something, anything. Georgia Tech had a 8-minute, 45-second drought earlier in this half. That last free throw ended a 4-minute, 45-second drought. Reed on the smaller George. That's too easy.
He did a nice job navigating. There was some traffic in there. Gapari went to block the shot and flew right by.
George is fouled on the shot. He'll have a chance at the free throw line, but still, Georgia Tech only has one field goal.
It'll be 3 for George. And again, he got fouled on this play, but I'm not sure this is a good shot. He's not really open there. It's a contested shot. Now, he did get fouled. You got to move the ball. Get that defense moving before you take the shot, before you drive to the basket. And Georgia Tech has just really struggled with that tonight. And the Wake Forest defense has been the primary factor.
George, a freshman, we have seen him get better and better as the season has gone on. And you go back to the Clemson game when Georgia Tech won in overtime. He hit the 2 big threes at the end of regulation. At the end of the game last Tuesday, he drove for the game winner against North Carolina. He's becoming that kind of point guard for Damon Stoudemire.
And, you know, there's been some pretty good point guards here at Georgia Tech, and those are pretty big footsteps to follow in, but he has started down that path pretty successfully early.
They had a good one recently in Jose Alvarado. You go historically, Kenny Anderson, Stephon Marbury, Mark Price, Travis Best, Jarrett Jack, Will Bynum. It's a good list. Craig Neal. The lob for Reed, it hits the rim.
Well, there's a little traffic in there. A couple of guys fell down and Reed couldn't get to the ball.
George working on Hildreth. Offensive rebound, Claude. And that's Georgia Tech's second field goal of this first half.
That's what you have to do. You've got to create a turnover, get down the court, get the shot up before the defense gets set so you can get an offensive rebound.
They went almost 15 minutes between field goals. Monsanto, you cannot leave him that wide open.
And you cannot give him that much time. But the Wake Forest passing drives the defense to the baseline.
George over Reed. Back-to-back baskets for Georgia Tech.
That's another tough shot, though.
Hildreth weaving and navigating Atlanta traffic.
And even after a made basket, Wake Forest pushes it up against Georgia Tech. They're not set, and there's a steal.
Wake Forest punching downhill. Tech milling in retreat, but Ndongo with the block. And Miles Kelly gives it up. Cameron Hildreth in Wake's win against Georgia Tech last year went for 19 points. He's got 11 to lead all scorers. He's almost outscored Georgia Tech by himself. ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball, presented by Progressive, is brought to you by Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Some of the first black students to attend and graduate from Georgia Tech honored today. While the game on the court, Dan Bonner, reminiscent of a substitute teacher being asked to monitor detention.
It's really been a struggle for Georgia Tech. Now, they've increased their shooting percentage to 11.5% from 5%, but you can see Hildreth and Carr both have almost as many points as Georgia Tech by themselves. But Georgia Tech, they've gotten a little bit going on offense. They've created a couple of turnovers on defense. They got a long way to go, but you just have to keep chipping away.
Tech shooting 3 for 26 from the field in the first half. 1 for 12 from 3. Sturdivant knocks down the triple.
And now Sturdivant, that's the second wide open look he's had. He's knocked that one down. You're not going to make them all, but the Georgia Tech defense, or Georgia Tech offense made the Wake Forest defense pay for their help that time.
Salas gets Gapari in the air. Gapari running the floor. Hildreth got in the way, and we'll get a foul.
You take that long three, and that allows Georgia Tech to get a long rebound and push. And this is a nice job by Georgia Tech. And Gapari does a nice job. He doesn't pull up. He goes right at the basket. And Hildreth, I mean, he gets in the way. But he brings that arm down, and that's where the foul is called.
Second foul on Hildreth. Gapari, 59% free throw shooter, the UMass transfer, and Monsanto into the game for Hildreth.
And you don't want Hildreth to, even though you have a big lead, you don't want him to pick up that third personal foul. So Georgia Tech has a little bit something going. Now you get a couple of stops in a row. And you can build some momentum before the half.
Reed backing down Ndongo to the jump hook. Nice move by Efton Reed.
That's a nice job because Monsanto's the guy who's standing outside, so you can't help off him, and that leaves Reed one-on-one.
Gapari down the lane, blocked by Reed, out of bounds to Wake.
Well, Reed, I mean, he's 7 feet tall, and he gets down inside, and he's going up against Ndongo, and you saw no help coming from the outside, and that's because Monsanto is standing right there. George is hugging him, and he has to, so there's no help available, and that's a tough matchup for Ndongo.
Steve Forbes acknowledged to us, Monsanto coming off a major injury. His offense is well ahead of his defense right now. He's a legitimate weapon on offense. We've seen him knock down threes. Defensively, you're going to have to live with that. He just can't move like he used to.
Well, that's very true, except I would say his offense has always been well ahead of his defense.
1-1 coming here for Wake. Miles Kelly picked up foul number 2.
Well, you got to get out and you got to make Monsanto dribble the ball, but you don't want to bounce him out there. You don't want to hit him that far from the basket. Because he's not only a good three-point shooter, he's a very good free throw shooter as well.
He led the ACC in threes per game last year. Former SoCon Freshman of the Year at ETSU. Wake's led by as many as 29. And another whistle down low.
A nice job by Gapari to attack the basket, but I think if he looked up instead of putting his hand down to drive, he would have seen Ndongo open on the inside. I mean, you take any opportunities you get if you're Georgia Tech, and Gapari did a nice job driving it to the basket. Georgia Tech trying to apply some pressure. It's hard to pressure Boopie Miller, though.
Salas. Monsanto lets it go. Tracked down by George.
He didn't really get set that time. Nice idea, though. He did a nice job moving to the open spot.
Kelly stepped out of bounds.
That's the way the first half has gone for the Yellow Jackets.
7 turnovers to 4 field goals for Georgia Tech in this first half. Well, we get a timeout. We'll take one too. Wake rolling on the road.
When you have a history of greatness.
ESPN will take you to Waco. It's number 15, Texas Tech, taking on 18th ranked Baylor at beautiful Foster Pavilion in Waco, 9 Eastern on ESPN. Right now, 9 projected teams from the Big 12 are in Joe Lunardi's bracket. 2 more on the bubble. ACC currently has 4 teams in. Wake Forest, one of Joe's first 4 out. Six-second differential between game clock and a shot clock. Seven to shoot. Salas puts it on the floor. In traffic. Gets the roll.
Boy, when Salas can get in the lane for that little shot, even under pressure, he's really tough.
Kapari, time running out. And that's how the first half ends. Wake Forest had runs of 23-0 and 10-zip. Georgia Tech started 1 for 24 from the field and went almost 50, even though the margin is 26. Think of where Wake sits. Very much on the bubble. Joe Lunardi has them as one of the first 4 out. But margin of victory, in the grand scheme of things with the net rankings, it matters. How they finish this game and how many they win by, that could give them maybe a significant jump in the net rankings before their next game.
And that's really true, Anish, and they will tell you they cap the margin of victory at 10 points, and they may do that, but one of the big factors in the net is offensive efficiency minus defensive efficiency, and dress that up any way you want to. That's the score.
Cameron Hildreth to the free throw line, 11 points in the opening half.
And again, Wake Forest right back inside. We saw that they scored 26 inside points in the first half. They had 40 in the game against Syracuse. So again, Wake Forest shooting the ball well, Wake Forest scoring inside. That's nothing new today.
That game against the Cuse where they shot 66% from the field, it was Wake's best shooting performance since November 2019. And in ACC play, it was Wake's second highest field goal percentage against an opponent in school history. Miles Kelly still looking for his first points.
Well, he only took 2 shots in the first half.
He's Georgia Tech's leading scorer. Hildreth, too easy.
But again, they rushed the ball up the court, and that's a great job by Boopie Miller to see Hildreth coming behind him. And whether he comes first or he comes behind, you know Hildreth is coming.
Ndongo over Reed.
Nice job by George to get through that tough double team off the screen.
If you're Damon Stoudemire, what do you think the message was at halftime?
Well, you just want your guys to keep their heads up. Say, guys, don't forget about what the score is. Let's just go out and play. Let's do what we do.
Salas offline. And I'm guessing if you're Steve Forbes, he's saying it's 0-0.
Absolutely. You don't want your guys to let up.
George hoisted up.
Why did
Wild
he do
shot.
that? I think he was looking for the foul.
Miller, nifty dribble, and knocked out of bounds. Last touch, Wake.
Now, Miller being a little bit too fancy in traffic that time. And David Stoudemire, George has come out of the game, and David Stoudemire's talking to him, basically saying, what are you doing? You know, he really likes his freshman guard, and everybody makes mistakes from time to time.
He's made some plays too, though.
Oh!
Kyle Sturdivant in for George. Pick and roll with Claude, and 2 shots for the Western Carolina transfer.
This is really a nice job on the screen and roll there. And the foul occurs because Reed just takes that hip and puts his hip into him. If Reed just stands there, then he doesn't get the foul. But it's hard to just stand there when some guy's coming right at you. And he's saying, I put my hands up in the air, and he did, but he came with that hip and got him.
Last Tuesday, in Georgia Tech's win against North Carolina, I thought Claude really stepped up. Ndongo left that game early with a head injury. A lot of folks probably thought, oh, with Baycott down low, Georgia Tech is toast. And DeWanna played well defensively, even though the box score didn't show it. Claude, 9 points, 8 rebounds, 3 blocks in that game.
Well, Claude has had some good games, and he's an important factor, can be an important factor for Georgia Tech.
Miller gets around Sturdivant.
Yeah, there you go. That's what Wake Forest do. 6-foot guard, 5'11" guard, you post him up. See, now that's not the kind of shot you want to take. You're not going to get back in the game by taking wild threes. Going to move the ball.
We almost get the sense it's like a poker player on tilt. Miller, step back 3, good.
Poker players tilt?
Tilt, it's
okay.
When you're out of sorts.
You're out of sorts, okay.
You're going all in with 2-7 offsuit.
If you say.
Ndongo facing up.
And they found him inside again. They're trying to pressure the ball. They're trying to pressure that ball screen. Nice jump shot by Ndongo. He didn't try to take it at Carr.
Reed had good position. Hildreth will drive, and he gets the foul.
That's great passing. And you move the ball that quickly, that creates a driving lane. And if anybody's going to recognize a driving lane, it's Cameron Hildreth. He got hit in the nose, and that's doesn't feel very good. But here's Hildreth. He fakes the pass, and the defense all goes toward the guy he's passing the ball to, and he just pops it right in the nose. You see Sturdivant and Kelly both run the other way, and he just attacks and gets whacked in the nose. Now, if you're Hildreth, you have an opportunity to free throw line. You're a great free throw shooter. You're not coming out at that, even if your eyes are watering to the point where you can't see, you're shooting these free throws.
Remember, his nickname is Bangers. George back in after a brief talking to from his head coach on the bench. Kapari in there as well.
You just got to hang in there if you're Georgia Tech. Just keep plugging away.
It's easy to point to Georgia Tech struggles this year. They're 10-12. We mentioned 3-8 in conference, but the 3 wins, UNC, Duke, and Clemson. The vast majority of games, they have been right there. This is an aberration. They've played in 16 games decided by single digits. That's tied for most in Division I. Kapari gets some separation and hits.
That's a nice job getting Hildreth to fly by. And Kapari is a guy who they think is really going to be good. He can shoot it a little bit. He's got good size.
He's seen the floor more of late as well. Reed, as no foul was called.
Well, there wasn't a foul there. That was a great job by Reed to get stopped, to get himself collected, and get the ball up to the basket. That's a really good play.
Salas all over Kelly. Now gobbled up by Reed. Ahead to Salas. And he splits the double.
Wow, that's a 1-on-3 fast break, but that's the way things are going for Wake Forest tonight.
Largest lead of the game for Wake. And Damon Stoudemire wants a timeout. One of the true pioneers in this conference.
One of the true pioneers and one of the really great guys. I did an interview with him years and years ago. It was a halftime interview during one of our broadcasts, and we were asking him about one of his big games where he scored a lot of points, and he talked about what a great feeling it was when you were hot. And in the middle of his statement, he's talking about how great it feels. He turns to me and he says, even you may know that, and then continue right on with his story. So a guy with a sense of humor, too.
Absolutely. Sturdivant off the feed from George. Offensive rebound, Ndongo. Shot clock into single digits.
That was only the third offensive rebound of the game for Georgia Tech.
Again, another tough contested shot, that time by George. You got to give a lot of credit to Wake's defense.
Oh, there's no question.
Georgia Tech shooting 19% from the field 5 minutes into the second half.
When you have a history.
K-State in the octagon of doom. Here, it's been a kind of doomsday for Georgia Tech, 61-27. That's not a typo, and I think you got to give Wake some credit. We talked about their struggles on the road coming into the game. They had lost 4 in a row on the road. They came out on fire. We had talked about Georgia Tech being a pretty good offensive team. Wake having its issues at times defensively. This has been a superb defensive effort by Wake.
Wake has pressured the ball. I mean, Georgia Tech has had very, very few clean looks at the basket. The defense has been aggressive, and they've been able to take that aggressive defense and turn it into offense.
Georgia Tech's ACC numbers offensively much improved. And we'll get a foul down low. Carr had a mismatch.
And that's the other thing. Wake Forest has been able to find those mismatches inside. And I think the reason is they've had pretty good ball movement. There have been times with the Wake Forest offense where this year where the ball tends to stick. There's a little too much dribbling. Well, not so far tonight.
Now the danger is, look at the 5 on the floor for Wake. Miller, Carr, Hildreth, Salas, Reed. Any of the 5 could be your guy on a given night.
Yes, absolutely.
It's been Hildreth tonight with 17. Last touch, Kapari.
Well, Hildreth that time, he took the ball hard into the lane, saw traffic there. Really good reaction by Georgia Tech. Damon Stoudemire going deep into his bench. Carter Murphy is in the ball game.
Reed from the outside. And Murphy.
Well, he can make the 3, Reed can, but I think if you're Georgia Tech, you're comfortable with him shooting it out there.
Murphy, 4 and white. He is a grad transfer from Air Force. George has his pass tipped again. Looked like he made a move and didn't know where he wanted to go with the ball. Miller over to Carr.
That's a pretty good pass for a pretty good shot. Boy, just nothing doing on the offensive boards for Georgia Tech. And again, that was a contested shot. Sturdivant did a nice job creating a little bit of room.
Miller off the skip pass.
Well, Wake, they have not relied on the 3 tonight. They've only made 4. They're now 4 of 14 from out there.
Ndongo unable to finish inside. But we get a foul.
I think it's fouls. Oh, it's on Reed. I thought it might be on Miller. I'm sorry, he puts his arm right across. That's a foul on the rebound, not on the shot. He just puts that arm right across his neck and pushes it down.
Third foul on Reed. Marsh, Fredrickson, and Monsanto into the game for Wake.
And as we have discussed, it probably isn't going to make any difference tonight, but Reed has a tendency to pick up fouls.
Debo Coleman has checked in for Damon Stoudemire.
Got a kick. Damon Stoudemire just looking for anything, just the smallest run, any positive that he can create.
This has to be disheartening.
Oh, it is.
When we spoke to him, yeah, he felt this team was close.
Yeah, he's very confident. He's very pleased with his guys. He thinks everything's coming together a little bit, but sometimes you just have a clunker.
You got a young team, especially George and Ndongo. Claude, the veteran, draws the foul on Marsh. Now the upside for Georgia Tech, though, assuming George and Ndongo both return, you've got two significant foundational pieces to build around.
You sure do. You got your point guard and you got your post guy, and those are fairly important positions. And for all the trouble Georgia Tech has had tonight, up until right now, they've been pretty good from the free throw line. They were 11 for 13, now 11 for 14, but that's where they've been very productive.
Back on the floor for the Jackets, number 13, Miles Kelly.
Miles Kelly checks back in. He does not have a point.
And that's hard to imagine, but he's only taken 3 shots. You can't score if you don't shoot.
Kelly, remember, against Pitt, was held scoreless as well. That was a Georgia Tech loss.
Kelly is very important to their offense. When he's making threes, that spreads the defense out, and they suddenly become very, very good on this end.
George working around Hildreth, put too much on it.
That's pretty good defense by Hildreth, and again, that was a close shot. It was not an easy shot.
And Hildreth tied up by Coleman.
Look at this guy.
One speed. It's not the Englishman who went up the hill and came down a mountain. He is driving down the mountain full speed.
You can
Up a 4-game road losing streak in the ACC. They were hot Saturday against Syracuse. They've cooled off, but just a smidge.
Well, they have cooled off, but their defense has really, really stepped up. For the game, Georgia Tech is shooting 7 for 40.
Say that again.
17.5%. And an awful lot of that has had to do with the Wake Forest defense. Georgia Tech just simply has not had that many open looks. I can only think of 2 or 3 open, wide open shots that they have missed.
And a few of them came from guys who were wide open for a reason. Tech gives it right back. Numbers for Wake. Nice defense by Coleman. Gets it back for the Yellow Jackets.
But look at Fredrickson just chasing.
Kelly still without a point. Marsh snags it. Sturdivant almost took it away.
And Wake is still pushing.
Monsanto's 3 does not fall.
Well, he won't miss many of those wide open ones when he gets a chance to get set.
Kelly, Georgia Tech's leading scorer. Kelly open, does not go.
Well, that's a great rebound.
Monsanto will try it again.
And he'll keep trying it. He thinks he got fouled.
Murphy, back iron.
Nice job by Monsanto. He's legislating for a foul there, but he gets back down the court and gets the rebound.
63-28. Sometimes you don't get that. Salas able to save it. 5 to shoot. Fredrickson does not go. Steve Forbes called him the best shooter he's ever signed. Murphy misses, and you heard the chorus from the Wake Forest bench. Don't dare him. There's Marsh.
And that's what he does. You know, we said, hey, he turned it over before when they threw him a bounce pass. Well, don't throw him a bounce pass. Throw it up and let him go get it.
Timeout, Georgia Tech.
And this is what we're talking about. You just throw it up to him, and Marsh does such a great job cutting to the basket, making himself available, and Salas does a really good job forcing Claude to step toward him before he makes the pass to Marsh.
You mentioned it earlier. You said shot selection was the reason Marsh shot 88% from the field this year, or last year. That's a very telling statistic. Only 7 made field goals the entire game for Georgia Tech. And there's something to remember. You might be watching and going, well, why is Wake still playing some of its starters? Why have they not called off the Dogs? There's a reality here. Wake is very much on the bubble. They're trying to build their resume. So much of your resume is dependent on net rankings. And part of the net ranking formula is how dominant you are in a game.
A big part of the net.
This isn't running up the score.
No. You really help your net if you beat the daylights out of somebody.
And coaches have told us around the league, they hate that part of it. Here's George, a rare open look for Georgia Tech.
That's a nice job by Georgia Tech to move the ball, and Wake Forest overhelped that time. But that's one of the very, very few wide open looks that the Yellow Jackets have had.
Yellow Jackets now 3 for 22 from deep. Carr and Kapari get tied up, and they get Kapari with the foul.
Wake Forest is just scrambling around on defense, and Boopie Miller just overhelps that time and leaves George all alone. But that's the kind of pressure on the ball that has worked so well for Wake Forest tonight. So you'll take that, I think, if you're the Wake Forest coaching staff.
Reed backing down Ndongo. Kapari looked like he was going to come help. There's that hook.
Well, Reed needed to get that ball back out. You get it back out to Miller, and then Miller re-enters it, and you get a better shot.
Kapari's 3 not there. Batted out of bounds by Reeves.
And again, that was a wide open shot, maybe a little early in the shot clock. Kapari now 0 for 3 from 3. But remember, in ACC play, he came into the game 4 for 20 from 3. So if you're Wake Forest, it's okay if he's shooting the 3. Georgia Tech really trying to fight hard through those screens.
Monsanto over Ndongo.
And Monsanto, he can shoot it off the dribble as he did right there. He can shoot it when he's standing still. The one thing you know, he's going to shoot it.
Well, there's an old line. The fox has many tricks. The hedgehog, one good one. Monsanto's one good one's a pretty darn good one. 7:48 to go in regulation. It has been all Wake Forest tonight in Atlanta. Days, it's one of those nights, and it's been that way for Georgia Tech. Those are their 4 leading scorers, and all of them have had their struggles to varying degrees tonight. Miles Kelly, the team's leading scorer, 0 for 5, does not have a point. Ndongo only has 5. Reeves, 1 for 9 from the field. George, 2 for 11 from the field.
And I think that most of the credit for that has to go to the Wake Forest defense. They've been very aggressive. They've pressured the ball. They've disrupted the ball screens. And the interesting thing about this, we're sitting right next to the Wake Forest bench, and their coaching staff, they've got a 37-point lead, but their intensity during this timeout off the charts.
Now, we mentioned it. Again, this isn't about running up the score. This isn't about any of that stuff. In the world of net rankings and how you win and the efficiency on the offensive and the defensive end, well, those things matter. And
the net
you have to eschew the scoring margin and play like it's 0-0.
The net is a seriously flawed metric because of its emphasis on offensive efficiency minus defensive efficiency. And so it's not really running up the score, but the bigger your margin, the better for you.
Miller gets fouled by Abram.
Miller just dribbled right in front of him.
Substitutions for the Demon Deacons, Cameron Hildreth and Hunter Solomon.
You know, Wake Forest has 16 assists in each, but they've been distributed throughout the team. Carr's got 3 of them, Reed's got 3 of them, Miller 2, Hildreth 4, Salas 3.
It has been a balanced scoring effort. 6 players have at least 8 points. George is the only player with at least 8 for Georgia Tech. Carr, the follow, gets it back, and 2 shots. Georgia Tech called for the foul. Wake Forest bench wanting a goaltend.
Well, this is really good contest by Gapari, but Carr does a nice job going straight back up and hanging in there. And that's a little greedy on the part of the Deeks wanting a goaltending there.
Carr is 1 rebound away from a double-double. He's got his 7th straight game in double figures.
He's really been a big factor for Wake Forest. And on top of everything else, Anish, Wake Forest is now 15 of 15 from the free throw line.
A 38-point lead. And George makes it a 36-point deficit. He's got 10. He's the first Yellow Jacket into double figures.
That's the first time I can remember in this game that Wake Forest hasn't totally attacked George when he's coming off a screen. And George showed you, when you give him that kind of room coming off the screen, he can hurt you.
Reed doubled, forced it. Here's George the other way. Abram off the shot fake and makes it happen.
Now, again, we talked about the intensity of the Wake Forest coaching staff. They do not like the sloppiness they've seen here on that possession. Nice job by George to anticipate that drive. The phrase you keep hearing from the Wake Forest bench is move it, move it. And again, you establish legal guarding position, both feet on the floor facing the dribbler, and then you are allowed to move to maintain that position.
Abram, baseline drive. Bounces around the rim, snared by Reed.
And throw it away.
Eight turnovers for Wake.
Steve Forbes, he's asking him, what are you doing?
Ndongo, tough shot, and it flushes in.
That's foul on George. Nice job by Boopie Miller to just attack George in that particular situation.
So a 1-1 for Wake as Georgia Tech was in the midst of a 6-0 run. Now you watch this Wake team, when they play to their full offensive potential, defense be damned, quite frankly, they look like a team that can play into the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. Offensively, Dan, I'm not sure there are many teams better than Wake, 1 through 5.
Well, I would agree with that. Wake Forest, particularly when they're moving the ball. As I said, sometimes their offense has a little bit of trouble when they start to get a little too much one-on-one, a little too much dribbling. When they move the ball and move the players around, they are very difficult to guard because they have so many guys who can hurt you in so many different ways.
And now you added Monsanto a few weeks ago, a guy who can come off the bench. And remember, he was a double-digit scorer before the injury last year. Frederickson at times has been a weapon off the bench, knocking down threes.
That's a good job by Gapari. That's a mismatch for Carr outside. He's not quick enough to stay with Gapari out there.
Miller against Ndongo, throws it inside for Reed, kicks it back out. Hildreth paused. Excellent ball movement. Salas got a clean look.
Well, Wake Forest, they have not shot the three well today, and that was an open one off some pretty good ball movement.
And a double-double for Andrew Carr, his 4th of the season. Miller all the way. When he hits the gas, he's hard to stop.
Well, and lots of times, you know, you get a little guy going in there and you say, how can he do that? Well, he's been a little guy all his life, and so he's used to attacking the bigger guys.
5 players in double figures for Wake as Ndongo slams it home.
Now, Carr went for the steal and didn't get it. But Georgia Tech, you know, they're getting a little bit of a rhythm going on offense. It's way too late.
Reed backs down Ndongo to the left hand.
Ndongo did a good job just holding his ground, and you saw Wake cleared that whole side, so there was no help for him.
Miller whistled for his first. For Wake Forest, this would be a quad 2 win. It's still a team in search of its first quad 1 win of the season, but they will have opportunities down the stretch.
Demon Deacon substitution number 10,
Abramo Zonka into the game for Wake Forest, the UCLA transfer, originally from the same hometown as Christopher Columbus, Genoa, Italy.
I didn't know where you were going with that, but that's a good one.
A dozen for Nate George.
And as the defensive pressure has slackened, George has sort of assumed his normal role with Georgia Tech.
Reed off the feed from Boopie Miller.
Wake Forest continues to pass the ball very well. You don't shoot the kind of percentage they're shooting without good opportunities, and they've gotten them and converted them.
Ndongo again. It's been a balanced scoring effort for Wake. 6 players in double figures. Zonko leans in. Out of bounds. Going to Georgia Tech. 10 points, 7 rebounds for Efton Reed. Everybody's chipped in tonight for Wake. A 30-point run in the first half. Wake Forest is led by as many as 38 in this game. Georgia Tech opened the game by missing 23 of their first 24 shots. And for Steve Forbes' team, currently projected as one of the first 4 out, this would be a quad 2 win tonight. They don't have a quad 1 win, but look at the opportunities. Duke, Virginia, Duke again at Virginia Tech, and Clemson at the end of the year. There's a chance that could have a possibility of being a quad 1 win should Wake get it.
Mike Young told me when he was talking earlier this year about his Virginia Tech team, he said, we have put ourselves in a position to be in position. And that's exactly what describes this Wake Forest team. They've played well enough that they're in position to make a move. Now they just have to make that move.
Ndongo slips inside. So realistically, if they're able to avoid any pitfalls, and so far they don't have a quad 3 or quad 4 loss, so they've done a good job of that. You can get 1 out of 2 against Duke, and let's say split with Virginia Tech and Clemson. Is that enough?
Well, you don't know. It depends on what other teams do. It depends on upsets in conference tournaments. But this Wake Forest team, I don't know how you can watch this Wake Forest team tonight and tell me you don't think they're an NCAA tournament-worthy team.
Well, the eye test says they most certainly are. But the metrics also say Wake plays NC State this coming weekend, and NC State is a quad 3 win should Wake get it, and the eye test tells you NC State is much better than that.
But keep in mind that the quads aren't actually set in stone until the season is over. That's what it is right now. And NC State is another team that has everything out before them. If they play well down the stretch, then that improves their net ranking, and that helps the other teams in the league.
Joe Lunardi entering today as Wake is one of the first 4 out. Right now he projects 4 ACC teams to be in the tournament. UNC, Duke, Clemson, and Virginia. Wake knocking on the door.
Well, not to disagree with Joe, but at this point in time, there is nobody in the NCAA tournament. And the only teams that are not in the NCAA tournament are those on some kind of an NCAA restriction. So minus those teams, nobody's in, nobody's out. We still have a lot of basketball to play.
A rare 2-point field goal attempt for Fredrickson. 94% of his shots had come from 3. He picks the pocket and goes in for the dunk.
Well, if he's going to shoot a 2, that's a pretty good one. It's a high percentage shot. Nice defense.
That might have been the first time this season he's attempted back-to-back 2s.
I would say that that's 100% correct. Coming into this game, he had attempted 90 shots, and 85 of them were from beyond the arc.
.55 seconds left in this one. Awfully impressive performance by the Demon Deacons. Oh, they put to bed a couple of things today. This Georgia Tech team, I know people can point to their record and say, wow, they're 10-12, they're 3-8. Got to remember, they beat Duke, they beat Carolina, they beat Clemson.
They beat Clemson at Clemson.
And offensively, they've been a pretty good team in conference play. The questions about Wake were twofold. Can they win on the road? Can they play enough defense? They've done that tonight.
Well, and the interesting thing is they're a pretty good three-point shooting team, and they have not been very good at all from 3 tonight.
Abram gets the layup, 80-51, and Wake will dribble out the clock. An early blitz by the Deacs put this game away. Georgia Tech cold to start, missing 23 of their first 24. Wake's defense had a lot to do with that. Wake Forest used a 23-0 run early in this game. They snap a 4-game road losing streak. They get the win. Offense scores 80 for the 13th time this season. The defense holding Georgia Tech to 50.